Are we in a simulation right now?
Many years ago, I would just dismiss that. But I'm gonna be humble. We haven't disproved that.
What counts as a world?
Even a grain of sand is a world.
Where was the memory of that stored if they had to regrow everything?
The morphology of every flower, every tree, every animal is a memory of evolution.
Where do you think the real experience occurred?
Everything that happens is real.
Do you think AIs can ever have common sense?
Common sense is not that hard.
Wow, I wasn't expecting that. Is reality just a bunch of Gaussian splats? Just like...
Something real has happened. Our simulation will start to blur. Our model is called Marble.
What? How did I not see this?
Marble is kind of a material to help artists and creators to create the world.
Wow.
This technology is definitely taking us in places we never imagined.
Stream the full episode now only on Rethink Reality. Hello and welcome to the Rethink Reality podcast. Fei-Fei, your work is incredible. You've helped let machines see. But what I've been really fascinated by when I look at your work and read your book, do you think an intelligent system can truly see without having to act on what it's seeing?
That's such a great question. First of all, Don, thank you for inviting me on your show. It's great to be here. You know, when one of my kids was 6-year-old, we talk about why trees don't have eyes. And it's very much in the spirit of your question. Of course, evolution did it the other way. Evolution, in the early days of evolution, 540 million years ago, the simple animals start to acquire sensory capability. Very rudimentary perceptual sensing, as well as some tactile sensing, and that got them to move a lot more. So from an evolutionary point of view, perception and sensing is actually a driving force towards embodied movements. We don't have an evolutionary counterfactual to ask the question that without moving, do you see, do you need to see? I think from a technology point of view, passive seeing is actually a legit technology, right? Like the abstraction at the software layer of just observing and understanding is possible. That's actually the early part of my own work. But from a unlocking full intelligence, especially for physical and embodied intelligence, I think the loop between perception and action and the inaction of the body is so intertwined.
Right, like that movement is like, I like what you're saying about evolutionary. That was the motivation to get animals to go do something and act on the world. They had to go see it first. So do you think that perception of seeing is incomplete without action?
That's a great question. These are very nuanced definitions. If seeing is seeing something, I think perception can be done without action. If seeing is defined to the fullest scope of what we do, what we can do as humans, then it's so entangled with our action. Now, obviously, even humans have individuals who are less mobile, and we cannot possibly say that they don't have full scope perception, right? These are clinical cases. Some are just very, not statistically the majority, but it does happen.
Right.
Then we have to get into how is the immobility affecting perception? Did they acquire halfway through life? And also, are there other tools to help the person to be mobile? So there is a lot of nuance, but overall, the coupling between perception and action for me is extremely tight.
Hearing you say that, just random curveball here, the animal, the bats, what do you think seeing is for them? Because, I feel like they have a very good sense of awareness. They catch prey, they hunt, they have mates, they know where shelter is. But they're not seeing in the traditional sense. So what are your thoughts on bats? What are they seeing?
There are definitely animals like bats. There are also underwater animals that uses sonar. And first of all, they're sensing. It's very important they're sensing. They're just sensing without the spectrum of light that we typically many animals do. So they're sensing the world. They have their own representation of the world through sonars, through the echo. So they're getting a great loop between sensing and action. Now, is this a counterexample to the importance of perception? I don't think so, because perception fundamentally is sensing. And in fact, why don't we have more species like bats? Well, sound-based sensing is a less powerful way of seeing, right? Bats are not as sophisticated as dogs in terms of their range of motion and habitats and behaviors, and it's limiting to their behaviors for sure.
So it sounds like sensing is it's like kind of a prerequisite for something to understand the world. And the type of sensors you have, would you say, impact what kind of worlds you can be in?
Absolutely. In AI, we now have this concept, data defines your model. We even have this thing that garbage
Oh,
in, garbage out. I think for animals and humans, the same. How we glean information, how we sense information defines how we understand and act upon this world.
wow. I mean, that's a good point. I love your logo, and I love the work that you do at World Labs. We're going to talk a lot about that. But one question I have is on the philosophical side is
Yeah.
what counts as a world?
Oh, wow, this is such a great question. There's so many dimensions to dial here, from religious, spiritual to physical, material. What counts as a world? I'm actually really, really curious. Are you in front of a computer? What would AI say? What counts as a world?
Yeah, I am in front of a computer.
Open your ChatGPT
You
or
got it.
Gemini. Let's see what counts as a world. I'm actually really curious. I have many thoughts, but a world can be defined as a geometric, space, right?
Right.
Where things can be putting, things can happen, things can move. It's almost defined it as equivalent to space. That's one
Okay.
way to think about it. It's a very physics way of thinking about it. But you can also think about it in a much more abstract way, where even if thoughts are allowed to happen, there is a
Wow.
world. There is an
Wow.
inner world.
Right.
As long as there's the flow of thoughts, there's world.
So one fun challenge I would have to you on that one is
Yeah.
cells. Do you think cells, individual cells going about their business in the body, do you think they have like a world that they
Oh,
understand?
absolutely. There's a beautiful poem. Now I forgot. I would like to remember the poet's name. It's slipping me. It's a very Buddhist poem that says even a grain of sand or even a petal of a flower is a world. And of
Hmm.
course, a cell can be a world. First of all, it satisfies the more physical definition. It's a space.
Yeah.
It has things happen in it, the
Hmm.
molecules and the structures and all that. So absolutely a cell is a world. I think a grain of sand is a world, but I also do think there's an abstract world.
So I did get a definition from Gemini.
Tell us.
It says the term world is remarkably flexible, shifting its meaning based on whether you're talking about an astronomer, philosopher, game designer, poet. It said at
Yes.
its core, a world is a self-contained system defined by a set of boundaries, rules, and inhabitants.
First of all, it touched poem, philosophy, physics. We're doing well. Second, yeah, self-contained. I mean, how self-contained? Like I said, a world can be thoughts moving in it, and that might not be as bounded as a physical world.
Yeah, they did this study recently with worms. They're trying to see if memory can live outside of a
Mm.
nervous system. And they did a
Hmm.
really interesting way of testing this theory with worms. Have you seen that study or familiar with it?
No, but my first reaction is called muscle memory.
Okay, right. Yeah. I think that totally. There's this worm, and
Hmm.
they taught it how to get through a maze,
Hmm.
and it remembered how to do that. And then they cut up this worm into much smaller pieces and had it kind of like regrow itself. And that
Wow.
new worm was able to get through the same maze, and as if it had. So what they were confused by is like, it's like, where was the memory of that stored if they had to
Yeah,
regrow everything.
yeah, that's
So,
fascinating.
right?
I
So,
don't know that study, but here's something that people don't appreciate. The morphology of us, of every flower, every tree, every animal, is a memory of evolution. So our morphology is part of our intelligence. And that there's actually a term called morphological intelligence. So we're
wow.
so holistic in that way. It's not just our brain or just
Hmm.
our eyes or just our body. We are one integrated system within our own body as well as within evolution.
Wow, I've actually never heard that term before. I'm definitely going to dive deep into the is it what you said
Morphological intelligence.
morphological intelligence. Wow, yeah, because you can't really separate humans from the fact that we have to be in constant interaction with our environment. It's like
Yeah.
we
And we evolve that, right?
Mhm. Wow. So, here's a fun thought question for you: as if an AI can perfectly describe an environment, but they've never interacted with it, does that constitute understanding, or is that just pattern recognition?
I think that's understanding. I actually think pattern recognition is part of understanding. A child is allowed to understand tiger without ever interacting with a tiger.
Thank goodness.
Yes, exactly. So I absolutely think that that's understanding. Is it all there is to understanding? I don't necessarily think so. So now we can get more nuanced. For example, if you've never interacted with the environment, then learning affordance is a much more complicated task. You can always be trained by big data. But, the famous example is making just ad hoc tools, right?
Hmm.
It's if you're stuck in a forest, how do you, without hammer, without nails, without anything, how do you build a little shed? At this point, that level, the human level of creativity really shines. It's very hard for a machine to have that. So there is a lot more, but the short answer was yes.
Do you think AIs can ever have common sense?
Common sense is not that hard.
Yeah.
Common sense actually might be even easier than one thinks because those are the many of our common sense are codified in our language, in the data there
Mm.
is that the AI can learn from. For example, in a very extreme hot take, and I might be disagreed by linguists, and that's okay because I'm not a linguist, is that language itself is common sense communication, is that we learned through generations and generations, thousands of years, right? They distilled these commonly
Wow.
used things, distill into language. Now, things like draw a sun, and then even today's AI tends to put the sun in the top half of the picture rather than bottom
Wow.
half of the picture. These are common sense. And where did this come from? You can say it comes from deep Newtonian understanding of gravity and celestial bodies and all that. But you can also say this is a statistical norm.
Okay. Right.
So these common sense AI absolutely can learn it. In fact, a 5-year-old and AI probably are not that different.
Okay. Wow. I wasn't expecting that. That was really cool. Wow. I was thinking that common sense was a hard problem, but if you're describing it as like the average of of a norm, then it seems like that's not that complicated.
Common sense there's a lot of data about common sense in our language, in our videos, in our images, and these data are abundant.
Oh,
But extracting common sense into deeper, more profound laws, for example, we
yeah.
talk about the movement of the stars, that's a different level, right?
Yeah. I mean, kind of transitioning a little bit into physics and more specifically world models. I noticed, like, when I was reading your book, you talked about like how ImageNet had a lot of human labeling involved
Mm-hmm.
in helping it understand the world. My question for you is, with world models, physics feels objective to me, but is there a subjective layer, like telling an AI that this is heavy or slippery or fragile? Like, what do those words mean? Is that us adding human bias to physics?
Great question. I think our world, and when I say the word world, is the complex human world, is always going to be complex. Some part is going to be objective and factual, some part is going to be subjective. World model, the ones that were labs is building is very multimodal. It has language and semantics. Our model has language and semantics as well as geometry and eventually physics, so that the interaction between language and geometry and physics definitely intermixes objectivity and subjectivity. So, for example, even the word blue, right, that is subjective, and also
Wow.
the word heavy, right? If you go to today our model and say, put a heavy couch in this middle of this living room, it is very subjective, and that subjectivity is prone. So
Okay.
this is all part of the entanglement between data and modeling in AI today.
Yeah, I mean, I love Gaussian splatting in general, just like when you can pull apart the particles and you can do a lot with them. One question I had for you is around resolution. Like, what do you think is the optimal resolution? Should it be like Gaussian splats modeled eventually at the atom level?
Oh my God, that's a great question. I do think about our world as fractal of resolutions.
Mm.
So for you and I living our daily life, I don't think we need atomic level resolution. But when we get treated in by a medicine,
Ah,
yeah, we better hope that that medicine works at the molecular level, right? So that means the scientists who were testing and developing and discovering the medicine are definitely working at the atomic and molecular level. So I think the resolution almost depends on the use case and the
okay.
scenario. The world is very nested. Speaking of
Ah,
definition of world.
so it's like, because if a world is a closed system, there's systems within systems within
Oh,
systems within
absolutely.
systems.
Absolutely. It's extremely nested.
Wow, I wonder. Okay, do you think there's a resolution of reality itself? Like, if you, I don't even know what that is. Like, what's the pixel? Is it the Planck length? Is there a limit to how small you can go?
I think pixel today is mundanely defined by hardware.
Okay,
Right, the resolution of your screen, the resolution of the digital camera, that's how it's defined.
okay, that's fun. I was just curious if, yeah, because the one thing I really like actually about your particular world model is you can go behind things
Yes.
and around things. I know I play with a lot of tools, and right now that is kind of difficult. That is very difficult for AI to properly do. But it seems like consistently when I build something in World Labs, I can get around and behind and underneath. So how
That's
does it know that?
intentional. That's
Okay.
intentional, Dong. I think we are very clear from day one. A world model needs to be 3D.
Hmm.
You know, the concept of behind and underneath and above is a spatial concept.
Right.
And why do we believe that? Because so many use cases, from gaming to VFX to robotics to simulation, needs that to design, put the chair behind the couch. So yes, that was intentional in our model representation.
It shows because like I can move my 3D cameras around and I'm like,
Yes.
wait, there's stuff back here?
Yeah.
What? How does
And
it
also,
know?
it allows you the perfect control. You can control your camera in a pixel perfect
Yeah.
way, right? That's very different from other AI tools where the camera just pans roughly in certain ways. Exactly.
You're just rolling a dice usually, but here I can be
Yes.
precise. I can be like, no, I need
Yes.
the camera to only go 20 feet.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not this proverbial, random motion.
Yes.
And I guess that's because because it's actually 3D. It actually has that data. Otherwise, you're kind of
Yes.
just guessing what the depth might
Right.
be.
Yep.
This is no guesswork. It's like, oh, this is
No.
the depth.
Yeah.
Here it is.
Exactly.
It's refreshing. If you had to, oh, this is a fun one I have for you. Is if you had a fictional dial that could set the physics resolution of a perfect simulation, what would you set it to?
Oh my God, that's again, it depends on what I want to do.
Well, knowing you, you're probably researching or making something. So, like,
Yeah, well, knowing me, I'm gonna do robots and with World Labs, our target industries are gaming, entertainment, robotics, and simulation of the real world. So
Mm-hmm.
the resolution would be it would not be at subatomic level for sure,
Okay.
because I don't think I need that. But if I'm a high energy physicist, or if I'm
Yeah,
a
right.
drug discovery scientist, I would dial that resolution down on Planck length or whatever.
Okay. So it's really dependent on the domain that you
Yes.
want to focus in and what
Yeah.
scales they need to work with.
Yes.
I was surprised to see that you added a collision mesh to the
Mm-hmm.
splats. That
Yep.
was like a what when I first saw that. Because usually I'd have to try to like approximate those things, but yours
Yes.
comes with it out of the box. That's very
Yeah,
helpful.
because the game developers needed robotic simulation needed, and also iterative design of a space needs it, right? So I don't send the chair through the wall.
Right. One thing I was curious about, I was just following some different research papers, and I'm seeing there's some research where people are trying to animate Gaussian splats because worlds are not just static.
Yes.
So is there a world where we might see in the future where World Labs has, I don't know if that's spoiling things, but what if there's movement in those splats, like a tree
Yes.
sways and
Yeah, we call it dynamics.
dynamics?
Absolutely. 3D, 4D modeling, right? Dynamics is on our road.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Because then you can really, really train a robot. It would be a perfect scenario if the world did not move at all. And then you ask the robot to go learn. But
Yeah.
that's all I see from all the training models is people have these static worlds and then they teach the robot how to walk in it. And then it's like, well, what if the ground moves? What if a
Yeah.
car goes by or,
Yes.
stick
Yes.
falls in front of that pathway?
Yes. Yep.
On the topic of robots, kind of switching gears here, would you say that proteins, insects, or simple organisms could be a form of biological robot?
Oh, I've seen nanobots that can go down in blood vessels to deliver drugs now. I've
Wow.
seen prototypes of
Nano?
that. Yes, they call it nanobots. I do think the word robot is very stretched right
Okay.
now. I used to half joke. I actually mean it that a wash machine is a robot, right? It's a machine that moves and does tasks. Obviously, that's not your typical vision of a robot, but
Mm-hmm.
so is not a nanobot that goes to deliver molecular level treatment in your blood vessels. So I think if our definition of robots is anything artificially made that can do tasks,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, like
Okay. Because you could like build a protein. Is if I go and engineer a protein that does delivery of a medicine, is that a nanobot that I just developed?
yeah, this is where, coming from the great Stanford campus, I have so many colleagues in synthetic biology, in robotics, that I almost need to respect their more professional definition or more expert definition of robot. I don't know a particular protein that can deliver something, artificial protein that can deliver a particular function. Is it called a bot or not? I don't even know. But that's how fascinating our science is. We're starting to see the intersection of engineering with biology, physics with chemistry. And that's what's fascinating now.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of my physicist friends are starting to get very philosophical as they start exploring quantum. And I was just like, wow, I did not see that coming. It seems like those would seem
Physicists
different
are
domains.
always the most philosophical scientists.
Oh, because they're at that
They're
edge of.
pushing the edge, yes.
Do you see people have any misconceptions about what the boundaries are between robotics, biology, and intelligence?
Oh yeah, the misconceptions everywhere, right? Part of this is healthy because it's new. When it's new, we're exploring. We're exploring as a collective society, and we're exploring on an individual level. It's also when it's new, there's a lot of opinions that are mistaken as facts, and then some are just wrong. For example, there's this forever debate about consciousness of AI. That's
Right.
one boundary that there's a lot of debate. What is machine? What is not machine? Sometimes is, so yes, And I think it's a healthy thing. I think we should have public and private and professional and personal discourse about what these things are, because it's going to define our life and work in the years to come.
Have you seen any systems that are non-human? Oh, sorry, systems that are mechanical that you would say have passed the consciousness threshold?
I've definitely seen systems that's passed the intelligence or Turing test. I mean, the entire progress in language model is absolutely passing in, Turing test hands down. And by the way, Turing test is a narrow test.
Yeah.
It's not the definition of all intelligence. In
Right.
fact, there is a lot of definitions of intelligence throwing around. So we don't even have an agreed upon one for a definition of, say, artificial general intelligence. But Turing test is definitely passed. So that means intelligence do exist in machines. How do you connect that to consciousness or awareness is a much deeper question. A lot of again, I'm not a neurobiologist or philosopher, but a lot of the original research of awareness and consciousness come from biological being that not only has abstract mind processing, but also has, like you said, the embodied cells and body to feel, and that connectivity between having a mind or having intelligence or having sense perception, but also the awareness of me, Dong are feeling hunger. Me, Dong, feel the happiness of understanding, a story. That is not what today's AI is, because today's AI, on the language side, is an abstract piece of software. It does not have a body to be self-aware. And of course, as we push into robotics, that does change, because these machines have sensory system, but their sensory system is very different from the human sensory system. It's not linked to the survival and the evolutionary instinct of that being.
One question I have about that when it comes to evolutionary instincts is around reward functions. I feel like humans have a reward function, a pretty clear one. And I know we create artificial reward functions when we're trying to train AI. Do you think a reward function for an AI is their instinct?
You could call it that way. Again, instinct, we almost have to ask AI again how to define instinct. Instinct is a very nuanced and abstract and almost uniquely human word, right?
Okay.
So, but to the extent, if the question is the reward function that is what drives AI algorithm, the answer is yes. That's how it's mathematically set up. It's optimized towards the reward function.
Do you think we're going to hit a limit on AI at all, like in our development of it?
Yes and no. In the following way, AI is, let me ask the question, have we hit a limit in our understanding and development of physics?
No, not that I know
right?
of. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's a much older science. There has been, I was a physics student, and I was in a period when I was studying physics in the around the turn of the century, where physicists laments or jokes about great problems were solved or were asked in the earlier years. But yet the field of physics continues. I mean, that was half joke. The field of physics continues, and we still have so many unknowns. I think AI as a technical scientific field is way younger than physics. We have so many unknown questions, right? So I'm not seeing limitation anywhere. Its capability in doing certain tasks might plateau depending on the algorithm, the hardware. Are we still developing? There are like local, nuanced stories there. So, people say certain data becomes the limiting factor of certain AI algorithm, and that might be true for a while, and then we'll have new ways of simulating or even bypassing data. So macroscopically, I don't see that happening anywhere soon.
Well, that's exciting. From like a research perspective, that means that there's plenty of room to learn and explore still.
Absolutely.
On the note of kind of like, we talked a lot about how spatial intelligence has unlocked creativity, and robotics and healthcare applications. I also noticed it's also unlocked a lot of surveillance applications. And just wanted to ask, is there any aspects of world models that you're concerned about their misuse?
Absolutely. Every piece of tool, like even if it's just a piece of paper, I'd be concerned about paper cuts, let alone something as powerful as AI, whether it's language model or world model, right? Like this technology can be weaponized. This technology can be misused. This technology can harm people. Every single piece of tool humanity has ever created is a double-edged sword. I think that's really, really important to know, that we are driven by our curiosity. We're also driven by our longing to have an easier tool, better life, healthier body, and all this helps us to or run faster, fly higher. All this helps us to innovate, but every single innovation can be used badly. And then, of course, there are people who just want to innovate to hurt, and that is really bad. But that does happen in humanity as well.
Can we stop that?
That's why we have laws and orders and governance and social norms and education and ethics and religion and human society. We are engineering our society in many dimensions so that we can continue to have better lives and to avoid the kind of harms and hurts.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's refreshing to hear. So we had to kind of lean on our ability to our innovation to kind of bring in the harms, like or reduce the harms by innovating solutions around the harmful side of these things.
I think Don, I really think we have to count on ourselves, our hearts, our brains, and our benevolence in us. Everybody has an angel and a little devil in each of us, and we have to lean in the human side of ourselves, the human value, to try to use the technology for good.
Thank you. I agree. I fully agree with that. Going back to kind of just, who owns these things. If someone makes like the perfect physics engine, who should own that? Is it like institution? Is it private companies? Is it humanity? Is it just the dolphins? Nobody else? Who owns the physics engine of our world?
The good news of technology is it disseminates. So it disseminates in different ways. There is open dissemination, especially in public sector, from academia to open source and all that. But there is, even if it's proprietary, it disseminates, right? Even patents have limitations, have
Right.
time limitations. Market competitive forces different competitors to innovate and compete, and that itself is a way of dissemination. And also, at least in America, we have antitrust laws to prevent out of bound monopoly. So who owns physics engine? I think we're going to have multiple versions of that. We already have multiple versions of
Right.
physics engine today. The AI native ones, the neural simulation, we're going to have multiple versions. I do hope World Labs develops one of the earliest ones. But philosophically, I think technology does disseminate and distribute.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm looking at all the tech in my studio right now, and there's there's microchips and microprocessors, and it's like I have this stuff, and yet these used to only be in research labs and billions of dollars of research, just single things, and they've miniaturized, costs have come down, so that's exciting. One thing I would like to kind of transition into, kind of as we wrap up here, is around just humans' work and dignity. I followed your work and I'm really inspired by what you're doing. And one question I have for you is, as more learning systems move into the real world and they start to do real world practices, they're not just in simulation, how do we ensure that human dignity is preserved for the people whose work intersects with these brand new robotic systems?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite topics, Don. We talk about AI so much. I think that no matter how powerful our tools are, human dignity should be at the center of this conversation. And I think there is multiple levels of responsibility when it comes to that. There is our individual responsibility. Our dignity is in our hands as people. How we learn, how we use tools, how we do our work, how we carry ourselves in our lives, that responsibility is absolutely in us. But we're also a society of connected people. As parents, teachers, colleagues, artists, we also want to make sure we ensure dignity for each other. For example, now that I'm a startup founder and working on product, it gives me a lot of joy and hope that within our company, we talk about empowering creators, right? We respect creators' dignity. We want to create a product that the creators feel that they can use it for bettering their work instead of taking their dignity away. And I do think there's a lot of collaboration we can do with creators, because I know that AI and creativity at this point is a thorny topic. There's a lot of anxiety about creativity. Humanity has always created tools to help creators. Think about the history of fine art.
Right.
It's as much of a history of human creativity as it's a history of tools and materials and machines even, right? So I think that in the AI age, there needs to be deeper conversations, not less conversations between people like me and creators or doctors or teachers or whoever about how we can use machines to empower humans.
I love that. You just kind of made me think, like, imagine if during the Renaissance, they weren't allowed to use chisels. They just had to use their hands to carve the marble. It'd be very different.
A great pun, because our motto is called Marble.
Oh, there you go.
Yes, because we use that because we feel like marble is kind of a material to help artists and creators to create the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not mean to place that, by the way. That was a good. That
And
was a
we
natural
have a
pun.
feature called chisel.
Are you serious?
Yes. If you go to our Marble, the model, and you open the advanced mode, there is a particular feature called chisel.
Oh my goodness. What? How did I not see this? Oh, it's in the advanced tab. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
You should try it.
I will.
It allows you to...
Can you clean up the splat?
Yes, we have that. It's in the studio feature. Chisel allows you to use 3D layout to guide the creation. So you can put blocks and say, create a gallery that follows this layout.
And it uses the blocks that you're placing to kind of adhere the geometry to influence the...
Exactly.
I love that. Okay, I will definitely use that chisel feature, and I will need to show my audience. I didn't know about that. Wow, and is that why you call your first world model Marble? Is that the reason?
Yes, it's actually a double meaning. We love it. First of all, the earth sometimes is called marble.
Yes.
The world. Marble is a nickname for the world. But marble is also a material that is a favorite of artists and sculptors to make imagined world. So we love that word because of this.
I really like, that's like an icing on the top. This was like a delightful surprise I wasn't aware of before the interview.
I'm glad.
Yeah, I love that. Wow, God, so many things, so many directions you can take this technology. I have a fun question for you. If a robot practices folding laundry 1 million times in simulation and then performs it successfully in the physical world, where do you think the real experience occurred?
Everything that happens is real. I mean, the piece of laundry is real, the robot is real, the work is real, and the result is real. And whoever benefited from that work has a real benefit. So I think it's very much real.
But which in the simulated computer, was that the real experience, or was it when it did it physically in the marble world?
Okay, now I have to ask you, whose experience? If the experience is the robot, it does have sensors, and if it's the physical sensor, the real experience is real to robot. If the experience is a piece of silicon in a simulation computer, and the silicon goes through zeros and ones, that's a real experience. Does it have awareness and consciousness? I do not think so. But it's a real physical process. And if I get that piece of folded laundry and I love it, that joy is real, and that piece of folded laundry is real. So there's a mini realness in it. We like to call simulation virtual because it is bits, it's not atoms. But that doesn't, but that's sometimes it's misleading because even though it's in a form of bits, something real has happened.
Right. I mean, one thing I was really excited to see when I was reading your book is that you've been a big fan of sci-fi since forever. And that's why I wanted to ask you this kind of more sci-fi leaning question. Do you think, if learning in a computer is a virtual environment, learning here is like in a physical world, do you think, just trying to ask this delicately. Okay, I'll just say it directly. Are we in a simulation right now?
I knew you were going to say that. You know, Don, I many years ago I would just dismiss that, and now we're not in a simulation. But I know that there's also Nick Bostrom who talked about that. Elon Musk loves to talk about that as a student of physics, quantum reality and parallel universe in the quantum sense is very much a real thing. Today, I would say, first of all, what's the definition of simulation, right? Like if simulation is a process that allows obey certain rules of physics and dynamics, laws of physics and dynamics, and the process takes place, you almost can say that this world we live in can be defined as a simulation.
I see.
Now, it could also be a deeper question. Did somebody design this simulation? There's more intention. That I don't know. My knee-jerk reaction as a scientist is without evidence. I don't think so. But I'm going to be humble and say that we haven't disproved that. I don't want to run with a hypothesis as if it's true or not true before the proof. And I don't want to overhype the potential possibility, but I also need to be humble enough to accept the possibility of that. And as World Labs creates a technology like Marble, where we actually in virtual world simulate so many spaces, it does fascinate me to think, wow, one day our simulation can be physicalized through 3D printing, through sculpting, whatever it is. And then the boundary of simulation and non-simulation will start to blur. We will train robots in our simulation that eventually will transfer in real world. So this technology is definitely taking us in places we never imagined.
The reason why I asked was I have a friend who does not use computers and tech. He's not in the tech space. He does use a lot of psychedelics. And I showed him a video I made with Marble where I had the camera leave I recreated a cathedral interior in Marble, and then the camera leaves it and it goes up and above. I showed this video to him and he says, that's exactly what it looked like when I left my body in one of the psychedelic experiences he had. And he
That's interesting.
He said, is reality just a bunch of Gaussian splats, just like that are very, very high resolution, always updating, and if wherever you look, it just adds more resolution. And I was like, oh wow, let me ask the founder and let me figure out what the thought is.
That I can answer. Reality is not a bunch of Gaussian splats. Gaussian splats is a way to express reality.
Amazing.
So is mesh. So is flat pixels. Each of these representation tries to express reality, and they have their own strength and weaknesses. But Gaussian splat is right now one of the most powerful representation because of the visual fidelity as well as the geometric information.
I'm going to play this clip for him, and he's going to be like, okay, thank you for clarity. Lastly is I brought one of your splats into my Vision Pro, and I walked around in it.
Oh, I love that.
And I brought my hands in front of the splat.
Yes.
And I could put it
you
through.
You can touch it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I took wedding photos, and I splatted the environments, walked through them, and it's bizarre. I feel like I was having new memory or recalling more memories about my own wedding. Being there and seeing everyone was the right scale.
Yes.
The right height. And you're like looking in the eyes and you're like, wow, I just don't, what are your thoughts on that? Just like that experience.
Even though we're early, our model and product is being loved by the virtual reality community. And I'm very grateful for that. I want to make it better and better for them. But yes, the immersiveness, the spatial experience. This is not a photo, not even a panorama. It's a walkable spatial, world. I love that too. I think that actually is going to become more and more popular. I think as headsets and glasses become better in their hardware form factor, the combination of what Marble does as well as what these hardware can do is going to give people new experiences that people have never seen before.
Yes. Dr.
Yeah.
Fei-Fei, thank you so much for your time and jumping on here and chatting with me.
Well, thank you, Don. It's a real joy. You ask very deep and fun questions.
Okay, great. I'm so happy to hear that.